Okay, today we are going to make a mesh wreath and we are going to use our wireframe, some lovely natural colour burlap. This is an everyday wreath that we're making with this gorgeous welcome sign. So let's get to it. First of all, we're going to work with 18 pieces of mesh on here. This is a kit, so if you buy the kit from us, you will receive the full 18 pieces cut for you to size. And I'm going to cut these at the 15-inch mark on my cutting board here. So I'm just going to cut 9 of each colour and then I'll come back and we'll start attaching. So if you're doing this at home with your own materials, I've used less than half a roll, so you'll get 2 wreaths out of each one. I ended up going with 16-inch. You don't have to be exact when you're cutting the mesh, but I just felt that this was a little bit thinner than the mesh I'd used previously for our Easter display. So therefore I thought I would just go that little bit longer. So now I'm just going to cut all of the green. I'll just clean this up. So I've got a bit more room here. This is going to be, as I say, an everyday wreath that you can have on your front door or in the house. If it's on the front door, remember it is poly burlap, so that means that the mesh is fine outside. However, the sign is MDF paper covered, so it does need to be covered from the weather. You don't want to have those signs outside if you've got full exposure to rain. They're not going to survive. All right, let's cut this. Okay, next thing we're going to do is just attach our wreath, our mesh to the wreath. So the simple thing I've found, the easiest I think, is using cable ties to attach it. And we're just going to use a bit of a ruffle technique. So you just need to lay your mesh down flat and simply pinch it to create this ruffle. We're going to work with 18 of these, so we've got 2 on the outer ring and 1 on the inner ring, and we're not going, on the middle ring, we're not going to put any on the inner ring because we've got the sign which is so large, so we don't need to fill that up. Once we've done this, we can see if we need to add some more ribbon or add any more mesh in there. We can easily adjust if we need to. So once you've pinched it, use your cable tie around the middle, and then we're going to attach that to our frame. Keep it loose to begin with, so if you have made a mistake, let's say I decide we don't have enough coverage here and I want to add more, I could even take it off again quite easily if I've got loose, and then I can pull it tight when everything's in place. So I'm going to alternate colours. First of all, do the inner ring and then do 2 on the outer. So let's just go with the green and lay it out. Let's just make sure you can see that. And then you just pinch it. And then with your cable tie, and then into this. Mesh does fray, so don't worry about any of that to begin with. Once you finish, you may decide to clean it up a little bit. All right, so I'm just going to put on high speed. You can see actually I turn that over. I like to have the curl underneath as I'm working. It just makes it a lot easier. And we'll get the mesh on the outer ring, and then I'll show you the get the mesh on the inner ring, and then we'll show you the outer ring. Okay, so we've got our first ring done. They're all loosely tied on. So now what I'm going to do is add 2 of the pieces, so 1 of each colour, onto the outer ring and continue the same process all the way around. Okay, so we've got the base done, and if you look at the back there, it's all tied up. Now, the way I've done it, where you're working on the outer ring and the middle ring, means it's a wider wreath. With the Easter wreaths, we did exactly the same format, but we used the inner ring and the middle ring, which makes it all a little bit tighter. I don't think there's any need to go when you've got a big sign and do all 3 rings, because that's just a lot of material. When you use the outer ring, it tends to sit a little bit further off the wall because you have the mesh that's sort of coming out the back. So what I'm going to do now, I'm happy with that as far as level of fullness. I'm going to tighten off all the cable ties on that, and then we'll go for the next step. As you're tightening the cable ties, just try and make sure your mesh is facing around, particularly for this outer ring, as much as you can to get that fullness on the outside. So now we have the base complete on that. What I want to do next is I'm actually going to put my welcome sign on, and then I'm going to add some ribbon and see if I want to add some any flowers to it as well. So again, with the kit, you get everything that I'm using here, but if you're making it yourself, you can choose how far you want to take this, how much you want to add to it. So this is a 25 centimeter square sign that I'm using on this one, and I'm just going to position it in the middle of my wreath. So I'm going to simply put these are our cable mounts. Again, these come with your kits. These you can buy from electrical supplies, Bunnings, Home Depot kind of stores, and they're very easy to use because they're self-adhesive. So one top, one bottom. And you saw I just cut the actual string off that was on this sign. I much prefer to use these. And then I have somewhere here I have an end of my bind wire. Here we go. So 2 pieces of bind wire, florist foam, anything you want that you've got that you want to use to attach it, that you like to work with. We use bind wire all the time here, find it's a really easy option. I'm going to use the crossbars. So at the back here you can see there's crossbars, and if I use the top and bottom of that to attach, then it'll make sure it stays in position. So I'm just going to turn it up that way, get my mesh, sort of all my mesh showing. When I tie it around the crossbar, I actually try and tie so that the bar's in the middle, so it becomes like a crossed in place. And sometimes it can be go slightly off, so try it loosely, see that you're happy with the positioning, and then you can tighten it off. So it could be that it's slightly too high or too low on my and not centered on the wreath. Look at all the ruffles up too, so all I'm doing here is just giving it body and shape. Yeah, so I'm happy that seems to be positioned well. So as I say, you could definitely leave this wreath as it is, like that. What I'm going to try is I just thought I would put a bow at the top and a bow at the bottom, see how that looks, and then if we want to, add a little bit of foliage as well. Now I'm going to use our bow maker to create this bow. So I just really love the look of this soft natural with the snowdrift, it's called, on the edge. Again, when you buy the kit, you can either buy the ribbon, or if you want us to make the bows, there's an option to buy the kit with the bows already made. I'm going to give myself a little bit of a tail here so that I can, if I want to, run it down the side. And I'm going to work to 5 inch as my measurement. We've got plenty of videos showing how we use the bow maker. And I'm going to use a triple loop on this. I put my bind wire in underneath it so then I can just twist that around and through here. And I squash this down as much as I can to keep my bow as tight as I can. And turn it over to tie that off. And my thought was that we would just have a bow kind of coming out from here, as I said, with a little bit of this cascading through both sides. So I've got quite long tails on my bind wire here, and that just means I need to wiggle through a little bit of space on my frame just to get to the edge of my frame here and tie my bow. I like to tie everything as much as I can rather than glue. It means if I'm not happy with it, I can always take it off. Okay, so that's the bow on there. I think it's a little bit harsh, so I did bring along some foliage because I thought I could just put a little bit of foliage come out of this as well. So I'm going to add just a little bit of foliage to the top. I was also thinking about a bow down the bottom, but I do like these things a little simpler. That's my preferred style. So what I'm going to do here is just cut some of these down. You can use normal cutters. I have got like a heavy duty one that we use. It just happens with the one I've got at the warehouse, but normal cutters will work. Here, I'm just going to cut each of these. All I'm doing at the moment is just having a look myself to see what I think of the style and design. And I haven't used my glue, but I have got glue, so I'll be able to just glue these in place. If you don't have a bow maker, I'm going to make a really simple, just 2-loop bow with this ribbon, and we might just add this on top. So I'm just going to make a loop, pinch it. You turn your ribbon. You always want to work with a ribbon up the same direction because some of them have got patterns on them, others don't, so it's not as important. And pinch it, twist, and just I'm going to give myself one slightly longer tail. I'm really bad at making bows by hand. I much prefer the bow maker. The bow maker is on our website, and if you do a lot of crafting, it's a great tool. Okay, so just simple 4-loop bow here. Again, the wire is holding everything where I want it to go. It's a nice tail. I just fold it in half, cut to get a nice tail on that. Yeah. And I'm just going to put this over the top of the other one. I could have made it all into one bow as well, but as I said, I was sort of having a play to see what I thought. And I've purposely made the loops on this a little bit smaller, so we do get to see that beautiful ribbon underneath as well. Obviously, make sure you're not squashing any of your mesh that unnecessarily, so you haven't tied it into your wire. Beware too with cable ties, they're quite sharp at the back where you've cut them off. So you want to make sure when you're putting them on your door, you actually think about that and turn them around so that they're not going to scratch your door. Or if you've got a particularly glossy door that you don't want to scratch, then you might want to put something like a felt behind your wreath just to protect it. So all I'm doing is just cut off the really obvious phrase, but I'm liking those two ribbons together, and I like them just at the top. If you wanted, you could also tie this in here or glue it. I'm just going to let it sit there, happy for it to sort of sit, and then you just, when it's hanging, obviously you do the final fluff up of all of the ribbons and so forth. But now what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of glue to the ends of these, and then just get them coming out of my bow here, just to add a little bit more interest, to work with the green on my sign. I tend to try and work, if I do it one side, then I'll go the other side, just to keep it even in case I don't have enough material. You can also cut these smaller if you want to for the top. This is where it's difficult working backwards, so let me just have a quick look. Just making sure it wasn't looking too long, but I'm happy with that. That one can kind of come down a bit, and this one can come out. Then I've got 2 pieces left, but I'm thinking what I might do is actually cut one of them a bit smaller. I need my cutter. This way I've got an extra piece. Make sure I didn't drop any. And I'm going to use the sort of slightly longer ones at the top and these shorter ones at the bottom. It's always worth having a bit of a play before you glue it to see what you like. I've decided that I'm going to go with one of these 2 shorter pieces at the front. Then, okay, so I'm going to go one a little bit higher and one a little bit lower down there. And down here. And that's it. That's the finished wreath. Remember with mesh wreaths, you've got to give it room when you store it. You don't want to be squashing things on top of it or your mesh will flatten out. The other thing I've done is where I've got the fraying pieces, which is where I've cut it, which is normal with mesh, I'm just sort of hiding that a little bit underneath the frame so that way I've got less of these edges that I can, oops, I use good scissors, cut them off. And just give it a little bit of a tidy up when you see any of that. But that's it, a beautiful everyday wreath that you can have on the front door or in your home. This kit is now available on our website with these instructions, obviously, if you wanting to create it yourself. Otherwise, poly burlap mesh, a wreath frame, lovely sign, some ribbon, and a little bit of foliage, and the job's done. Hope you've enjoyed. Have a great day. See you.